You're all going to die down here.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let me start with, babe, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you like to play a game?
Oh, no. I didn't see that coming.
Yes, we got there. We did it.
Recording over.
Now there's a good reason for me to ask that question.
Oh,
yeah.
Good? Yeah, I don't know.
The other times were great reasons, but this time, a good one. That's right, everybody. Welcome back to Millennia Macabre. As you know, we are running through the forest of early 2000s horror. That's right, the year 2000, all the way to the other year, 2009. And God damn it, if we didn't find ourselves landed in 2004. The movie? Saw. The director, James Wan. The writer, Leigh Whannell.
And star.
And starring Leigh Whannell. Exclusively. Also, Danny Glover. He's in the background somewhere.
Yeah,
also, and like we're gonna struggle on this one. Can we
Carrie Elways.
Elways.
Carrie Elways.
So not Elway.
Elway?
Like Elway.
Elways.
And not Elwes.
Sure.
Sometimes I see his name and I go, it's Carrie Eels.
You can do whatever you want. We can just call him Robin Hood.
Now, before this film, everyone knew him as Guy from The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
And Dad from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Well, I knew him from Robin Hood Men in Tights. I thought that was like the funniest movie of all time growing up.
It is, though.
Yeah.
It's still good.
Yeah.
That's a great movie. I love Robin Hood. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. Yeah, so that, Princess Bride, and then I would go like, oh yeah, he is like the stepdad thing from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. He's the other guy.
No, he's the stepdad in Liar Liar.
What?
Yeah. Mrs. Doubtfire is Pierce Brosnan, actually.
Oh my God, you're completely right.
Yeah.
You're completely right. I don't not that they're interchangeable in my mind, but those characters feel interchangeable. So really, Liar Liar?
I think in like the early 90s they both had like a glossy charm to them. I could see.
Yeah, I can see it. Also, I just want to point out that we have an Animal House going on right now. We got both a cat at our feet and a dog.
The cast has gotten so big, we have multiple producers.
We got a purr-ducer and a paw-ducer right now.
Pup-ducer.
And the cat is very, let's just say, weary of the dog.
That's fair. If
And
someone's
there he
smelling
goes.
my tutor, I'm a little anxious about it too.
That's what he did just then. He went for that tutor and he was like, what? Ooh, making sounds.
What glories behold.
Oh my God. So I've been waiting for this day for fucking ever. We went to the 20th anniversary showing of Saw in theaters. It had a little extra. We didn't mention the other famous name. Tobin Bell.
Oh, right.
Who arguably was made famous by these movies and not like anything else, to be completely honest.
Was made famous, but also like what striking oil did they get to cast Tobin and Bell? He's just so perfect for the role.
I know. So it's really funny because the first Saw, he's in it a lot and also not a lot at all.
It's mainly sleeping.
And that wasn't a dummy, by the way.
No, it's him the whole time.
They faced down that boy in a bathroom the entire time, and he said to himself, "This is why I trained in classical theater to be put on a tile floor face down, wearing a like a blood cap in his
This
underwear."
is why I was in King Lear on stage, so I could lay down in a dirty, grimy movie.
Our eyes bulged like a couple of weeks back when I put on The Quick and the Dead out of nowhere and saw his name in the credits. And I still couldn't identify who he played because it was like, he must have been way younger.
There was like every few minutes where we're like, oh, that's Tobin Bell. And then a new character would come up and we're like, oh, no, that one's gotta be Tobin Bell.
No, that's gotta be Tobin Bell. Yeah, we never got to the
We didn't
root of
lock
that
it down.
mystery. We didn't lock it down. But now you absolutely know it's Tobin Bell. Thanks to these movies. Yes, it is a franchise. Yes, there's 10 of these fucks. There's absolutely 10 Saws. And I gotta admit, as a horror, how do you say, connoisseur.
Scumbag.
So horror scumbag? We're not talking about Eli Roth. There's no Eli in this episode.
Fair enough. Okay.
I wasn't a big fan of the Saw movies. In fact, I avoided watching most of them for years.
Was it always like that, even when they came out?
Kind of. Like I wasn't big into Saw when it came out. Everyone like I got to it late. I didn't see it in theaters like other folks. I saw it on video and I was
We
like,
were
oh,
pretty
this is
young.
okay.
I was like 15, 14. So unless we
Yeah.
had someone older to take us.
Yeah, I was 14, so yeah, it probably wasn't an easy walk-in
Yeah.
for Saw. And yeah, I watched some of the sequels on video, and they were all kind of like interchangeable to me. Fun fact: this was supposed to go direct to DVD,
Yeah.
originally, but it tested so well that they were like, "Fuck, we could probably sneak this in the theaters for a spell." if you
This movie was at Sundance. Can you believe
was.
that?
will. It was at Sundance. Do you think it got a standing ovation?
It was at like the same lineup, to be fair, with like Napoleon Dynamite and Garden State. Like maybe not the hottest year for Sundance.
What a terrible year for Sundance. I would let Saw kick down the door on this one. Yeah, so these boys had some trouble getting this one financed, right?
Well, yeah, they brought the script to a bunch of producers, I think, over in Australia, and it wasn't really selling. So finally, they decided
They're like,
to
"It's
make.
just another day in Australia, mate." That's my Australian accent.
That was
Hey,
really
mate.
good. That was really good.
Hello, mate. That's not a beer.
It's so natural.
Yeah, you had to tell me that Lee Winnell was Australian. I didn't know both of them were Australian.
Yeah, they were actually like friends, and they went to film school together over in Australia. Anyways, so they ended up making an 8-minute clip of Saw, basically doing the reverse bear trap scene. But Lee Winnell was playing the Amanda part.
Yeah, the character is called David in the short.
Yeah.
But it was the same basic principle that he got out.
And so they had this for a proof of concept, and then sent it around to multiple production companies, and then finally Lionsgate actually picked that up.
Lionsgate getting
Yeah.
hard and heavy on the horror in the early 2000s. Their name
Yeah,
comes
they
up
were.
a lot.
Yeah, they were kind of like the Shutter back then. They were the
Yeah.
Neon back then.
And so this was one of those like, well, it's very funny. They said they were inspired by Blair Witch to like self-finance and do their own thing with it, right?
Right.
And they said they had no money to do anything beyond what they thought would be like basically a 2-person script. Originally, it was supposed to be in an elevator.
Yeah.
And James's idea was that we would just use like play it out through security footage. And then eventually they came up with the idea of like put it in a bathroom and have it be kind of like a mystery thriller. Like James Wan was much more, I think, influenced by Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And wanted to film it like a Hitchcock movie. But
Well, there's even homages to Hitchcock in there, like the flash camera scene. Like that's a direct
Yeah, that's
influence
right.
from Rear Window.
yeah, and there's a bunch of peeping through windows in this one. Actually, I was shocked by the amount of window peepage.
Very funny to think that this is something that ushered in the whole like torture porn era. When you break it down, when it's just
And it's not?
the first, it's kind of like a crime detective, like not a huge mystery. When you break it down, it's not the smartest film, but you can tell it's kind of going for more of like a 7 energy.
Yeah, it's definitely trying to, and I think he said like the grunginess and grittiness of the film just came out of necessity, less so
Yeah.
than like an actual styling. Like it sounds like James wouldn't have filmed it this way if he got money, and then when you see down in his career, it's like, yeah, he never made a movie that looked like Saw ever again.
Never again. It's very. I mean, you can see in interviews that he's a big fan of how this film looks.
No.
He's majorly inspired by like Giallo or like Dario Argento. You can see that in your beloved film *Malignant*.
Malignant. Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is very
One of
much
my
his style.
favorites.
But this was a rapid fire thing they had to just do to just get it done and
Yeah.
prove
They had-
that they could do something.
Yeah,
I
they had
guess.
18 days to film this son of a bitch, and they
Yeah.
only had like a budget. I think they had a shooting budget of $700,000.
Yeah.
The movie overall, I think, was around like 1 million, 1.3 million was spent on it. It made
100 million.
103 million. It was a big hit, and it was very similar to like being one of the most profitable horror movies of all time, alongside Blair Witch Project.
Right.
So, one of their inspirations. They did it again. I think Saw is like one of the movies that basically proved the business model that Blumhouse and so many other independents like Neon and A24 are picking up on, which is you don't have to spend a lot. You don't really have to have name brand actors coming into it. You just need to be very like concept driven and be able to just allow the restrictions actually define what you are and then sell it.
Get an actual creative type, someone who's passionate about a project, instead of just like appointing someone to a role and saying like they'll service well.
And this was their whole thing, right? Like, I think they had like DreamWorks and a couple of other studios basically give them decent offers, but they were so afraid of losing control because they said the two constants that they wanted out of it was that James Wan would direct. He wanted this to be his foot in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that Leigh Whannell would act.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Now, listen, a lot has been made, or a lot has been said about Mr. Whannell's acting prowess, right?
Yeah, it's not a secret. It's one of the worst things put onto film.
I wouldn't even say that. I watch the movie and I say, you know what? For a dude's like first outing, and for this being like a very turnkey operation, and especially in the domain of horror, it's not the worst thing I've seen come out of a person. We're not talking about like Neil Breen.
I think that's fair, but if you consider how successful the movie was, it's shocking when you look at that. But
let me tell you, the sequels fix that. by hiring the big guns. Donnie Wahlberg comes in by part 2. Let me tell you, we really fix the whole situation, huh?
I will say I do have respect for this film, and I do have. They did everything they could. They shot it in 18 days. They had no time for like a retake or like to really tighten up the script, I guess.
They didn't even have enough footage. When they got into the editing bay, they're like, we're missing a lot of coverage.
Yeah, they had to like re-edit some film to make it look like surveillance film.
Yeah, they also did $400 worth of reshoots where Leigh Whannell had to pretend to be actors like Shawnee Smith and sub in for the other detective, the partner of Danny Glover.
Right.
And just like shoot very specific shots of like from behind or from,
like
every
hands.
time. Yeah, the hand stuff is all him instead of Shawnee Smith.
Yeah.
That's really funny. So yeah, they had like no money. And I love that spirit of independence of this kind of like DIY filmmaking that I think produces some gems out of nowhere, right? And I think Saw hit for a lot of good reasons, right? It was definitely like very edgy, very grit to it. Was a little like
I remember it coming out and
unflaunting, right?
Yeah, I remember it coming out and seeing trailers for it and being like, "Oh man, this is dangerous! Like this is a dangerous, grimy." I hadn't seen it yet. I was like, "This is going to be like real serious shit." When I finally get to see it,
well,
yeah. Then I saw it, but
again, so this is something that happens on this podcast every once in a while. In fact, almost with every movie that we watch from the 2000s, which is, that was pretty good back 20 years ago, and you watch it now and you're like, oh, that was kind of quaint. I think Saw's no victim of that. Like I said before, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Saw movies, and it wasn't until Daniel, my roommate, has always been on the Saw train for some reason. He's Saw pilled, right? And then it wasn't until last October that I actually started like rewatching some of these things and going through it and going like, all right, what is this really? I got into it because I was like, you know what? These are like the Fast and Furious of horror movies.
They really are.
They're very episodic. They're dumb as fuck, but they're very high concept, and they just focus on what works, which is like, let's put people in fucking Rube Goldberg machines and crush their arms and make them like chew through their own feet and stuff. But, I had a newfound appreciation for kind of like the melodrama and stupidity of the Saw series, right? And some of the kills are great. But yeah, it's interesting going back to this one and going like, well, a lot of the identity of the sequels, like, this is not a torture porn movie in the least.
Not at all, no.
Even the basic principle of like eventually like, oh yeah, he's going to have to saw off his foot to get out is treated as more of like a jaw dropper than, well, anything else in the film.
Well, and a lot of the violence you don't see mainly because they didn't even have a budget for it.
Yeah, you don't see the violence happen in most of it. Like they do flashback amongst like different kills, but it's more of the aftermath of the scene than it is like the intense scenario. And it's funny that the sequels turned it into, well, you know how like he puts people through games and we only like really talk about that in the first movie? Let's just like show that 15 times per movie.
Do you think like the influence of say Hostel like really made them up the ante, or was it just the fact that they had the budget and they were going to follow this path anyways?
I think, honestly, I don't think they knew that was kind of going to be like the identity of the series going forward.
Yeah.
I would be interested to hear what James Wan and maybe Leigh Whannell have said, because it seems like as you get further along, the less involved those two are in those films.
Yeah.
They still make a pretty fucking dollar from them. But they moved on to other projects, right? They both like worked on Insidious together and came up with The Conjuring and
things
stuff.
That look much more true to them.
Yes, much more true to like how I think they wanted to be in Hollywood than making basically like torture porn things.
And they were early 20s just trying to get something out.
And they didn't even think of the film as that, because what's funny is, like, if you compare Saw 1 to something like Terrifier 1, you could tell in Terrifier the director's really into that shock gore.
Yeah.
Like, really wants to dive into it and show you. And you watch this movie and it's like, you could play most of this in daytime television today and be fine.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They don't even show, like, they cut away from the foot sawing.
Like, you see worse things constantly in American Horror Story.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just like, I don't know that was it. I think they honestly were more attracted to, like, this kind of bottle script style and being able to tell a story within restrictions.
Well, there's actually an old interview, not even really an interview. It was like a clip of Lee Winnell. He was this film critic on like a children's television show in Australia. What? And this is like before he went to film school. And he was kind of going through like the tropes of horror and kind of saying how bored he was with it, because it's basically like there's just a bunch of he goes on a bunch of boring stuff and then there's a good kill, there's boring stuff and then there's a good kill, boring stuff, good kill. And he said basically what Wes Craven had done with Scream is he took those in between boring bits and made them interesting and turned it into like a 90210.
Yeah.
So it's funny that he ended up making something like Saw, or like they've kind of followed he's made the popcorn horror basically and redefined that genre in the earlier 2000s and early 2010. Like, he's followed the same kind of trope.
So sort of, right? Like, again, I don't think he's as responsible in the sequels as like other like the editor, for instance,
or at least being the arbiter.
He is like this concentration point of a thing that I think got out of his hands.
Yeah.
But like, if you look, the editor, for instance, Kevin Grugert or whatever, ended up becoming one of the primary filmmakers for the rest of the series. He's directed almost like 7 of the entries, including Saw 10, which I think is very good. Even as a movie by itself, I think it's very good because it's like this one. It's stripped down. It doesn't have like the flagrant kind of aspects of like, here's an entire house of traps and shit like that. Like, no, it's very much down to basics.
It's very dumb, but don't get me wrong. Yeah, I enjoyed Saw 10.
Yeah, I enjoyed the fuck out of Saw 10. But yeah, I think in this one, it's like you can see there's a big focus on character that I think maybe the sequels like get away from because they need to have a whole cast getting ripped apart by traps. And in this movie, that's not the focus of this movie at all. It literally is these two trying to figure out, what does this guy want from us? What does this Jigsaw character want from us? Who are we to each other? And then the majority of the film is flashbacks to their lives.
And that's them and their early 20 minds trying to make the in-between bits interesting.
Yeah, like the connective tissue with character. And I do agree with that. It does make this movie far less boring.
Right.
Because I think otherwise, if it were just like, here's Saw Trap after Saw Trap after Saw Trap, it would be like, this is kind of rote.
The sequels.
Yeah, the sequels get rote. The sequels get the same. It gets the Friday the 13th flavor of like, you could literally watch any given one of them without knowing what the previous one was and just kind of get it.
It's funny, we kind of had the reverse effect on these movies, because when I finally saw it when it came out, I remember buying it on DVD and I watched it like dozens of times. Like, I thought it was like cool and artful and I loved Carrie Elway.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice, like, I don't know, when I was 16, I don't think I really noticed how bad Adam's acting was. It's just not something I was processing. No, I thought it was like brilliant.
Like, wow,
and
it's
I think
really
by
real.
the time like 3 came out, I was understanding like, no, this is like crap schlock. Like,
yeah, there's something about it, right? And then and again, there's a melodramatic aspect that like the underpinnings are here, you know, like the sad doctor that is hiding an extramarital affair versus like the PI that's been like following him and acting like he wasn't. Like there's little underpinnings of the dramatic flair, and I think it just gets stupider with every film, dumber than the last. The kills get better and the stories get stupid.
Because that's what was bringing people back. Like, there was no coherent story. That's why they had to time hop a million times, because Tobin Bell, the lead killer, was dying anyways, so the story just didn't matter.
Which is very funny.
Very like a Friday the 13th path.
Yeah.
Where they tried to keep continuity, but it didn't make any sense.
Lee Winnell was actually inspired by his own problems. Like, he was getting a bunch of migraines and stuff and going to the doctor.
That was his inspiration for the killer, yeah.
And he was worried that like every new like meeting that he would have with the doctor, they'd be like, you have tumors, where you have like how long to live. And he came up with the idea of Jigsaw, of like, what if he was putting people through trials because he was at his end of his rope and wanted to make people appreciate life. And I think that's like a interesting bent for a killer. 20 years on, that's actually one of the more interesting bits about Saw, which immediately abandoned after like a couple of movies. But no, not really though. The problem is they have to abandon the character because he has a finite lifespan. But they still go back to the fact that, well, you know, John Kramer's mission was virtuous, and people like Hoffman, they've subverted it for their own needs and stuff. It's just like whatever. That's why 10 was good again, because it was like none of that happened. It's a prequel. We don't need to focus on that. Fuck that.
It's funny the bend that they've made that John Kramer is virtuous, when in the first one it's like not particularly. I mean,
Not
he's
really.
just kind of killing whoever. I mean, I know he has to have, they say he has a reason, like everyone's kind of done a bad thing, but when you think
Yeah.
about it, Adam, who was just like a private investigator or like a photographer, what
Right.
did he do? Why did he deserve to be locked in that bathroom?
Exactly. Like what annoyed John Kramer about him in particular? Yeah, and I think that's maybe something that the sequels do better to an extent, but it makes the writing more hokey, is that they have to bend over backwards to explain why every person there deserves to be there in John Kramer's eyes.
Right.
Where in this movie, they don't quite care very much. For instance, if you look at the reverse bear trap scene, which is an iconic scene, Shawnee Smith is playing the character Amanda, stuck in this fucking bear trap that when it goes off, it's going to rip your head in half, right? Like it's in her mouth. And the only way out is, oh, there's a guy on the floor unconscious. You have to take a fucking scalpel and dig into his stomach for the only key to get this thing off your head.
Yeah.
What did he do to be the I'm going to get stabbed and killed participant? What was his mission? Because usually, like, okay, so like the two guys in the room have their own like objectives, and it's like about who's going to do what. What amount of suffering can they get through in order to get out of there? What did Mr. Man? What was his note? What was his tape?
What did Zepp do?
What did Zepp do? Yeah, the movie never explains what Zepp does.
know.
There's a 2005 like prequel movie called Saw Rebirth that they actually wrote and put on like a DVD or some shit that does explain the Zepp thing, only to the extent where he apparently Zepp was very jealous of all the doctors around him, and it would even like make them infight and lie to each other and like reveal their dirty laundry to each other so that they would continue to like ruin each other. And John was in the hospital watching this, and he was like, I'm going to put this guy to a test and see if he really cares about people.
I guess that's the one kind of scary bend as opposed to like Friday the 13th or Halloween, where it's just like I'm safe because I'm not a Laurie Strode, like I'm not a descendant of her, like Michael's not coming after me, or like I'm not a Jaws family member being tracked down by a Jaws
This
force.
one's like, you could do something that pisses off John Kramer.
Exactly. We've all done something bad enough.
And it's all like a moral play thing,
deem
right?
worthy to be kidnapped by John Kramer.
If you work in investment banking, you could wake up in a saw trap. It's like the scary thing. And I think more of the sequels dive into this, because I think the problem with the first one is they had to hide who John Kramer is.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't get to know much about him. You just like, in fact, the whole misdirect of the film, spoilers for a 20-year-old film, but fuck off, right? Is that you think Zepp is the killer. You think he's Jigsaw the entire time, and not realize that, oh, actually he was in playing his own game that John put him through.
Yeah.
And so you don't really get like deep insights into like the why until the sequels of like why he does this and shit. So you don't get that flavor of like, well, wait, what makes this person like, what is their chance of survival outside of this situation? Like the boy or the guy on the ground, right? What did the big guy do to deserve getting, actually they do mention in the movie, remember with the trap with the barbed wire that he has to climb through?
Yeah.
Oh, because he cut himself. He cut him, like it was a suicide attempt. And John was like, I think you did that for attention. Which, by the way, very judgy.
That's very fucked up. People don't kill themselves for attention, first off.
Also, terrible way to try to, quote unquote, cure mental illness, Jonathan. Right. Like, gotta tell you.
I don't think he's a doctor, let's just say.
Like if John was really
Not
like,
a mental health care professional.
would you like to play a game? It's called monthly therapy. And like you're stuck in a room with a therapist, like you have to talk to this guy every week.
It is weird, yeah, how it's like you're just too sad, or I mean, they're not really doing anything to hurt anybody. Like Amanda she's a drug addict. She wasn't doing anything to hurt anyone. She was just causing self-harm. But I guess he just has such a reverence for human life that he wants to prove to them what they'll go through to save their own life, I guess. So
yeah, you watch through, and like in the sequels, Amanda is like one of his biggest disciples.
Yeah.
Right? Like she wants to be the next Jigsaw. She goes through, she kidnaps people wearing a pig face mask and shit. And you go back and it's like, in this movie, she's like, he helped me. He helped me want to live. And you're kind of like, oh, all right. That's how you get over drug addiction. Right. You know what I want after that? More drugs to get over that traumatic experience.
Right.
I'd be like, thank God I already know where to get heroin. Like, what the fuck?
So she could be worried that he would come back for her.
So I would love it if like there was a more maybe more like thoughtfulness to the character of John Kramer, because like he's an architect, by the way.
Yeah.
He's not a psychiatrist, and I almost want the character to be a psychiatrist who knows how to fuck with those elements of people, but instead he just kind of like you like the litter? Well, now you're in a trash compactor and have 2 minutes to eat all of this garbage. You're like, oh, so what's that going to make him do afterwards other than give him like absolute like distended stomach forever and maybe die?
Let's get into John Kramer a bit. Like, why is he so theatrical? Like, he has all the bells and whistles, like
What
down
is
to like
wrong
wearing
with
that
him?
spirit Halloween robe. I don't get it. There's too many elements. There's
That's
too many
right.
things he's going for. Puppet doesn't make any sense. Not to get jump too much into the sequels, but there's a part in like Saw 10 where the puppet comes out and starts talking to the captives.
Yes.
And then like 2 minutes later, John Kramer just walks out anyways and starts talking to them, or like plays a recording for them, but he's still in the room. So there's I don't know, there's too many things going on.
Yeah, part 10 is funny because it feels like a set rehearsal where he's like, this is what I would have done if I wasn't standing here.
Right.
Pretend I'm not here.
But you
Look
can
away.
see me up on the balcony over there.
Yeah, very, very strange. Also, can we get into like the main problem that I have with this film? Why did he involve himself in the bathroom trap?
That's been my main problem for years. I've said this a million times. Like, I guess that's supposed to be the twist at the end, but he didn't need to be on the floor at all.
And that's where you get into like, man, this definitely is like writing by two folks that just came out of film school, because there's no real sense for him to be there beyond it serving the twist at the end. And people talk about like that's the greatest twist in filmmaking, and I don't know, man.
It's crazy. First off, the whole like breakdown with that banger track.
Yeah.
The what is it called? The Zeps track.
Oh, it's called Hello Zep.
Oh,
Dun, 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 dun. It sounds like something that a magician would like walk out on and do some tricks
Dun,
and
dun,
shit.
dun,
Yeah,
dun, dun.
people
Yeah.
love it.
He's getting up. It's revealed that he's alive and on the, from being on the floor. But then they just start doing like flashbacks. They do this many times because they just didn't have enough film. But when you break down that,
Although it made more sense in this movie than it does the sequels, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All the sequels kind of do this, where
Because,
it starts showing flashbacks.
Well, the whole movie is
flashbacks-
told in flashbacks. That's why I think it makes more sense. Whereas the sequels are all very linear, and so when you do flashback shit, it's just most like it's like you're telling the audience, "This is what I hid from you."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is what I hid from you this entire time, and you're like, "Oh, thanks for revealing your trick, asshole."
Same with the first original ending, where it's like, oh, they're just showing, this isn't revealing anything. They're just showing me previous scenes in the movie. And John Kramer is also getting up off the floor.
And it sucks because we have like 20 years of Saw and like parodies and knowing what the movies are and where they go and what they do, and it's just like that twist will never work again. Like, in fact, us like watching it last night, it's just like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, when it came out, it was a huge big twist. People were talking about it like, holy shit.
I could even get behind the, like, I mean, people argue, like, how could he have held that still for that long? Like, sure, maybe, like, those two are just in such a panic because they're locked up. Like, they don't notice somebody flinching. But yeah, why was he there?
Why was he there?
Easily been in the other room, and
Exactly.
it would not have mattered.
It could have easily just been like another dude's body.
Exactly. Like,
It didn't
if,
need to
if
be
you
him.
wanted them to feel intimidated, which they already would have been because they're locked up in the grossest bathroom on earth, you could have just won him at any of his other victims. I don't get it.
Yeah, that one escapes me to this day. I mean, like maybe there's like very valid reason for it, but it's like he doesn't really involve himself in the traps in any of the sequels like that in any sort of like, form or fashion. It's kind of very strange for him to be like a part of it. Maybe it just, I don't know. Again, it just goes back to where it's like, yeah, that's just movie logic, and the movie logic is there because it had like, would you feel that the twist was as impactful if you just learn where like Zepp goes like, no, I'm working for Jigsaw and I'm not Jigsaw.
And then Jigsaw just walks out of the room, walks into the room.
Yeah, like that would kind of suck. Like it's a visual reveal.
Yeah.
It's not a good story reveal. But it is a good visual reveal to be like, oh shit, this thing that I was looking at the whole movie is not what I thought. And I get that.
Which is crazy because when I was 16, well, I mean, I guess that was the age for it. But yeah, when I was 16, I was like, whoa, how did they do that? How did they do this?
And instead, it just like takes like 4.5 seconds to be like, well, why was he there? like there was no like big, my problem is I guess there wasn't like a big point of conflict that where his body needed to be used. The closest thing they got was like, it's assumed that his body was poisoned because that's what the note says that's on him. And then Dr. Gordon, played by Carrie
Elways,
can apparently like dip like a cigarette in his blood or something.
Yes.
I forget how that works.
Yeah, you walked in the bathroom of that part, but you got it.
I did. So like in order to poison the other guy, because all right, we're going to get into the story mechanics for people that apparently have not seen Saw. I'm going to give you the basic premise. Okay? Because we're already debating, ripping it apart.
Lay it down.
So Saw begins apparently on September 10th, 2001, according to
the movie. That cannot be true.
Which I gotta tell you, could you imagine cutting off your foot, getting out of that trap, but like I gotta see my wife and kids, and then it's like, Gordon, turn on the TV. Like holy shit!
Yeah, like you want to tell
everyone another jigsaw trap.
You would want to tell everyone what you've been through, and you're expecting like sympathy. You just survived.
Right.
You just survived cutting off your leg, and it's like everyone else is distracted.
Everyone else is like, yeah, whatever, dude. That doesn't matter. But again, he would think
just happened, guy.
He would think that Jigsaw organized something even larger.
But also, like, how could this be true? When was this movie shot?
I think it was shot in 2003, so it's just not.
That's just.
I think it's the trivia said it was because it was on his phone. It said like 2001 or something, and I'm like, who cares? And I'm just like, why? You already knew what happened on that. Why did you do that? Anyway,
the Sundance darling.
The film starts in a rustic, nasty, dirty Silent Hill bathroom.
I'd have to give it to Set Deck on that. With their budget, they made that disgusting. I mean, there's some laughable set deck the rest of the movie where you can tell every room is exactly the same.
There's also no exterior shots because they couldn't afford it.
Yep.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Or you see like curtains over like sections where there clearly isn't an actual window. It's great.
Yeah, it's really good. So two men wake up in a bathroom chained to like pipes and radiators and such. Mm-hmm. And one of them is a doctor by the name of Dr. Gordon, Carrie Elways, and the other one is Adam, who you may learn his last name in part 5. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, some of the skin something.
Yeah, it's like skin height. Skin height?
I think yeah.
It's something with height. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Adam, played by Australian extraordinaire Lee Winnell, a man whose career goes in such fun places, honestly. The dude ended up directing and writing The Invisible Man.
One of my favorite movies in recent history.
Very good. He's doing Wolfman. I'm very excited for Wolfman. People are weird about the design of Wolfman. I'm just like, I'm okay with Wolfman looking like a weird burn victim. That's awesome.
Right?
You know, like we got enough like normal looking werewolves. Go watch the hit film Curse by Wes Craven if you want a normal looking werewolf. Okay? If that's what you want. It flips somebody off too.
Best part of the movie.
But they don't know why they're there. They're just waking up for the first time. They're in the complete darkness. And Gordon flips on a light. It's really funny, the voiceover that starts, because it makes Gordon sound very sinister.
Yeah.
Where he's like, there's no light in here. And you're like, why are you talking like that? What are you doing? But then, you know, when the lights go up, he's like, hey, where's my daughter? But the stakes are as such, they see a dead body in the middle of the room. Okay? A guy in his underwear.
And a tape recorder.
Holding a gun and tape recorder. And then the story kind of unspools a little bit where they start looking for little environmental clues, much like a Silent Hill game.
It's very Silent Hill.
Yeah, I was thinking that. We both are playing, or I beat Silent Hill 2 Remake, and you're playing through Silent Hill 2 Remake as well.
66% of the way through.
That's
Give
a
me
lot.
another 3 months and I'll finish it.
That's a lot. And yeah, some of it's like funny where he sticks his hand in the toilet. I'm like, James would do that.
There's James Heaven in that room.
But yeah, they eventually find 2 little mini tapes, and there's a cassette player in the dead guy's hand, and they have to figure out like a way to get it with a shirt and a fucking like, oh, this is the bad part. They had to take out the stopper from the tub.
Oh, yeah.
which would be the downfall of Adam, apparently. And then the recording tells him, that's all personalized. The recording tells him, I'm going to play a fucking game with you fucks. And essentially the job is for one of the men to get out. And for Gordon in particular, his mission is like, you have to kill Adam.
Yeah. It's like betray each other to get out. And Gordon is actually kind of like, he's the one potentially cheating on his wife, but he's also kind of like has the most morality in the movie, I would say.
Yeah.
It's almost like he never really even considers killing him. He is always trying to like maneuver around and figure out how to not kill
That's
him.
true. That's a good point. When I think about that, there's never a moment where, well, first of all, he can't even like walk over to Adam.
Yeah.
But it does seem like he never really thinks that like, oh, I'm going to start throwing things at you to kill you or whatever. Like he just doesn't consider it, right? But very early on, we get the iconic Saw scene. The whole reason that these are titled Saw is that they literally pull out, Adam pulls out from a garbage bag that's hiding in the back of a fucking toilet 2 bone saws.
Yeah.
The saws, they originally think, are meant to cut through the chains on their feet.
Yeah.
And then Gordon figures out pretty quickly, I think he means for us to cut off our feet. And then like it goes into like how much are you willing to lose to survive?
Yeah.
Is kind of like the ethos of Mr. Kramer.
They're just proving to themselves how much they want to live.
Yeah. And I forget how long they have, by the way. They're like until 6. And I'm like,
yeah, until 6, but I think it starts at like 10 p.m. Or
Yeah.
you never know if it's a.m. or p.m., I think.
I guess the bathroom while it's happening in real time, like linear kind of style, like the framing device is flashbacks of their lives.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of the events leading up to how they got into the bathroom and kind of explaining like maybe why they were picked.
Yeah.
And then you eventually learn that, Gordon is cheating on his wife with like one of the interns.
Yes, yeah.
I believe. And you see her very
Orderlies.
briefly in one of the early scenes where they're actually looking at John Kramer sleeping in his bed.
Yeah, the perfect subtle acting in this movie where you see her like literally do gaga eyes over him.
Yeah.
Like every role choice is so overstated in this movie. Again, I know they didn't have
Absolutely.
time for reshoots, but it was
Right.
just so funny watching her like literally bat her eyelashes at him.
It was insane. Also, the funniest bit that I miss, even though we saw it in theaters, if you look at the bedside of John Kramer, he has like designs for a reverse bear trap just sitting there.
Yep.
And you're like, oh.
There's also in that scene you can see the little pen flashlight that what is Carrie Elway's character's name again? Gordon. You can see it in that scene, and that's like what John Kramer takes to frame him, but it doesn't make sense because the next scene he meets up with Danny Glover to be interviewed. Like it's like he stopped in the middle of that process to go meet up with Danny Glover, and Danny Glover has that pen in
Already
hand.
has a pen.
Yeah,
yeah. That's I missed that
Oopsie
little
doodles.
detail. But
I
like,
just caught that movie mistake today.
Oh no! You know what?
Otherwise, perfect movie.
It's time to disqualify all the sequels. It's time to shut them down. You can't watch them anymore. They don't make sense. This universe is plagued with inconsistency.
Cooked.
Fucking cooked. Danny Glover is a detective who's hot on the trail of the Jigsaw killer. And then because like in the bathroom, there's a conversation where he's like, I think I know who did this. And Adam's like, well, come on, man. Tell me, who was it? Because that's his acting the entire film, honestly. And he's like, well, I don't know him personally. But then it drifts off to like the flashback.
It's funny how Danny.
Yeah.
First off, I think it's pretty brilliant. Like, it's a pretty decent. I wouldn't say masterclass.
You said brilliant. You started with brilliant.
The route that they went through to get this done. Like, they wanted to make sure they had complete control. They casted a couple people that were known well enough. Shot this in a short time and a short budget. Like, it's
Right.
the smartest way you could get to really get the ball rolling on your own career and kind of show what you can do. And I think Danny Glover and obviously Carrie Elway's were like successful enough to get your movie noticed. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have respect for that. That being said, James Wan casted Danny Glover not because he recognized him from his filmography. It was because he'd seen him in that era, he was doing Pilates infomercials. And that's what he recognized from. And that's how he got casted.
And he was like, this guy's got something.
I mean, they only had him for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then those 2 days, he's literally just standing in a warehouse room acting insane. That's it. But
Yeah.
not the greatest use of him, but
And I love that he was like, I could really see this guy playing a detective, like not knowing that Lethal Weapon was a thing.
right? There's only 4 of them.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck are they doing in Australia? What they don't. First of all, one of their biggest Australians is in the Lethal Weapon films.
Right.
Mel Gibson. What the fuck?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. James, what are you doing? Probably just like sitting up watching fucking Hitchcock all night, not watching the true classics.
Again, I do have respect for them. Like they chose, like, they didn't want to go to like the most regarded film school because they didn't want to be in a pretentious environment. They want to do films that they think are fun and things they like. So they went to like a lower grade film school so they could really pursue what they want, because otherwise their idea of it would be like, I don't know, French extremism and then like nude women. Like they didn't want to do artsy fartsy, clearly, but
I don't think they could if they tried. See how their careers evolved.
but I don't know, they stuck true to them. They did what they wanted to do, and that's
I
pretty
think
brave.
it's hard. I think it's
so
hardcore
early
to
in your
be able to
career.
make something like this, right? And like, it's easy to poke fun of it, right? But it's like, it's kind of like an amazing testament that they came out on the other side with a thing that also saw global fucking success.
Right.
You know, people are like, yeah, there's something to Saw, right? This is not something anyone has really seen before. It's sad that they are the ones that get pegged for starting like the torture porn kind of discussion.
I mean, it's been 20 years, and I don't think it's really part of their identity anymore. I think it's been long enough where people don't think about them even really being associated with it.
Yeah.
Because their films have been so wildly different. But yeah, I'm sure it was very hard in the beginning.
Oh yeah, they're like, you could only make like a mom faint from like The Conjuring. Like, those are not hardcore films in the least. They're very like digestible
Popcorn
mainstream horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're meant to, you know, get a large crowd of people out there and jumping at some scares and whatnot, but they're not meant to like make you throw the fuck up.
I know you're not the biggest fan of that. I mean, you do like number 2. I very much enjoy number 1.
I think it's all right. Like, that's all right. Yeah.
I don't roll my eyes at popcorn horror. Yeah. I mean, I think they're fun enough. They're fine.
Oh yeah, there's a place for it, right? I don't think there's you get a lot of folks that go like, well, this is like true horror, this is true terror, and there's none. I'm just like, that's a very weird kind of how do you say, barometer to place onto a genre that's entirely subjective.
Right.
Most horror movies don't scare me, and yet I love horror.
Right.
You know? And so like, you'll have some people going like, well, if it's not scary, it's not good. And I'm like, sometimes it's not about it being successfully scary. Sometimes it's about it being quality.
Right.
Or fitting its tone or supporting its story.
Also, not to state the obvious, but horror is subjective. What one person finds scary, the other person will not.
Yeah. And I think the idea of like an entire movie that's so claustrophobic, as Saw, of like, we're stuck in a single room, right?
Yeah.
Like, there really isn't, none of the machinations of the sequel are here.
Yeah.
You know, like, they're not being stuck through rooms where they have to like puzzle solve their way through it. They're stuck in a room in a very intimate situation. And I kind of like that stripped down basics of the premise. Are some of the flashbacks really hokey and some of the acting distractingly bad? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's some like
see the same
not great
flashbacks
things
over and over. Like, how many times we saw Carrie Elways walking through that garage?
Good
I
God.
think it was like 4 times.
Do you remember when your picture got taken and it's like, we're like, yes, we absolutely remember that because you've shown it 4 times. Yes. God damn. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But yeah, you eventually, like, you know, it kind of unravels over time that Adam was hired by Zepp or Jigsaw. It's hard to tell at this point.
By Zepp, but by proxy Jigsaw.
Yeah. In order to follow the Gordon.
This is what I mean by there's too many elements to Jigsaw, by the way. Like,
Yes.
there's no reason for him to like carve puzzle pieces out of people.
Yeah, that's another detail that's
There's
very
so
just
many
like, that's just a serial killer thing to do. And I'm like, you know, when we learn more about John Kramer, it just does not seem like a motif that he would commit to for any reason.
Well, he's been how many months does he have to live, first off? But it's like he's been planning the next few years out. How does he have time to carve things?
Yeah, I don't get. Well, I guess that the trouble that I have with John Kramer is that he's never framed as crazy in any of the films, and like part of that is like a little eerie, where he's so steadfast in his kind of vindication or his conviction for his work, and he views it as the work, capital T, capital W. That, you know, there's something scary about that, but also like there's a lot of pratfalls logically with that stuff, where you're just doing serial killer shit, or the movies are showing him doing serial killer shit just because they have to
Yeah.
for the audience to kind of digest it. But I'm kind of like, I wish he wouldn't do things like that. Like, I'll carve off pieces of the victims and stuff because he doesn't care about that.
No.
He doesn't view himself as a murderer. In fact, the movie goes out of the
Yeah,
its
so
way
why
to
would he
say,
leave like a calling card?
yes.
Yeah.
And it's like the calling card is that he set up an elaborate trap where somebody killed themselves. That's his calling card. If you see that happen and it's not something like, a dude slipped on a banana peel in its garage and died, then yes, it was probably Jigsaw.
You know what I didn't catch,
Yeah.
by the way? Our beloved Dina Meyer's in that. Dina Meyer of Starship Trooper.
I was
and
shocked that
Bats
she was in
fame.
part 1. I know she's a big part of part 2. And
Is she? Okay.
and I think she gets murdered in part 3 or 4.
Oh, I haven't watched the 2 since like it came out.
I was shocked to see that. Yeah, they were like, no, bring her back. I was like, that's crazy.
Well, they tried to bring obviously Carrie Elways back, but he didn't want to come back for
So there's a story behind that
years.
too.
Yeah,
he was promised a percentage of the film, 1% of the film's grosses,
Which is
and didn't get that.
typically what you do for an independent film. Like 98% of the movies that you sign a contract for that, there's no actual like earning from it, but you do it just in case.
Yeah, like hey, you made that 18-day shoot of in a bathroom like really like worth your while, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, out of $100 million, that would have been pretty nasty windfall for
Pretty
him, right?
easy to do the math on that. If it earned $100 million,
He
you're
sued the
supposed to get
producers,
1% of that.
By the
Yeah.
way, he sued the producers. I don't think it was like a vendetta against like Lee or James. or
No,
anything.
no, it was just
like,
the producers
he didn't get his
withholding from him,
Yes.
which they did settle it out of court. So that shows you that, yeah, Mr.
Got some
Carrie
money.
Elways was right.
But yeah, because of that, he said no to most of the sequels, even though
Yeah.
like everyone tried to get him back for all of the sequels.
He was our final girl, which is like
Yeah.
the funniest thing about it. Carrie Elways is like man in his 40s is the final girl of this
Yeah.
movie.
And then he does come back for Saw 7.
Yeah, 3D. Is that
3D, the or also known as the final chapter because they realized that people wouldn't have 3D televisions beyond 2010. Yeah.
I love that he comes back and he like doesn't even make an effort to hide his accent. It's so
No, he doesn't. It's
You
great.
can tell how much he just does not give a shit about being
Not
there.
at all. But I loved it because he has like his own little cult of Jigsaw maniacs and he goes head to head with Hoffman. That's my only note here is that I am depressed that the presence of Hoffman was not invented yet. So we could not enjoy Mr. Hoffman and knowing that he's the one that did some of the stuff in this film.
I didn't even know about Hoffman because I obviously past like 2 and 3 I stopped watching them. I didn't watch them for a decade.
It's
I
a
was
good
just like,
choice.
oh, they're just yeah. I was like, oh, they're just carrying on this stupid torture porn genre. Like this
Yeah.
is going to be dumb and mind numbing and like I'm a quote unquote real horror fan now. But
Yeah.
and then you were talking about how a year ago or Daniel's been like a big proponent of
Always.
the Saw franchise. I remember him logging in
Yeah.
like Saws a year ago onto Letterboxd and being like, I think this is a cry for help, Kevin.
It is a cry for help. It's a cry for John to make you love your life again.
So I had no awareness that there was like this entire like Daddy Hoffman fan base.
There is. They love that Hoffman. Okay? They love that
I
man.
love that they do like a Marvel like cutscene cameo at the
Oh,
end
it's so
of
good.
Saw 10.
It's so good. I need that conflict. I need to see what Gordo does against Hoffo. Like I need it. These movies found a new through line and they need to complete the arc for me so that I'm happy. but none of that here. None of that here. Just,
You know what's funny
Leigh
is
Whannell acting in a bathroom.
they kind of made the same because like again it was like striking gold casting Tobin Bell because he just has like the voice, he has this air about him, like
does,
he's very
yeah.
watchable.
Yeah.
But they only have a small window with him because he is a dying killer.
Right.
They do the same kind of mistake in Insidious where they kill off what's her name again?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The older lady, right?
Yes, yeah.
I forget her name. I gotta look it up real quick. Lynn Shay.
Lynn Shay, where they kill her off, spoiler, in the first Insidious at the very end, and then have to like retroactively like bring her back because she was like a Tobin Bell of that series where she's just insanely watchable and like the funnest part of the movies.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made that mistake twice.
It's so tough, especially with like the first entry of a thing. You don't know what's going to hit. You don't know what the... No.
Right.
Down, pupper. You don't know what's going to be the next thing. No, come on. Yeah, you don't know what people are going to really glob onto, right? And I guess the two takeaways are like, people seem to really love Jigsaw and people seem to really like those traps. Which is funny, again, like there wasn't... I mean, you get the bathroom quote-unquote trap.
Yeah.
You don't really get to live through or see much of the other traps. They're very quick kind of things, and yet they just stuck with people.
Yeah.
They're like, could you imagine being in a reverse bear trap? You know? And yeah, dude, that's like a horrifying thing to see. Like the visual of this mechanical fucking thing all over her face. And
it's an iconic visual for sure.
when Johnny Smith filmed the scene, she had a fever of 104.
I read that
like she was sick doing it, but I think that just like led to the performance like a bit more.
She's
where
naturally
it's like,
sweaty and
she's like desperate, nasty during the scenes. We just saw Shawnee Smith from years on back, by the way.
I had no idea that she was like such a scream queen before.
Apparently, we watched her in The Blob 1988, and James Wan apparently went to the casting director and said, "Can we get Shawnee Smith?" And his only reason is because he had a crush on her.
He did, yeah.
Through his teens. And I'm like, that's wish fulfillment.
She
I guess.
initially refused, but then she saw the actual like
Saw.
8-minute clip. She saw the Saw clip, the 8-minute clip, and then agreed to it.
She's like, put that in my mouth.
They shot all of her sings in a day.
Yeah, again, it's one of those examples of just like turnkey filmmaking that like I appreciate more than the actual product.
Yeah.
Like I wish I liked the first Saw like more.
Yeah, I enjoyed this from afar, basically.
Yes. But like if I were to sit here, like I remember even during our watching last night, I was like, I'm a little bored in a lot of parts of this.
Yeah, there's not like a lot of things to praise within the movie, just around the movie.
Around it being made.
There's some fun charm to it. Like we were laughing about like obviously they didn't have money for a car chase scene, so they just had to like film two cars in the dark with like fog machines, and they just had to like rattle the car.
Yeah, rattle the car, and they did like this weird snap editing thing where like everything is like in hyper motion. And I think it was a film crime. It was the nastiest thing I've seen on film.
A lot of things look like that in the movie. It looks like I was saying, like it looks like a new metal music video to me. I know. It looks like they took hints from the Linkin Park video.
Every sequel said like, yeah, man, that's how you do like panic filmmaking, which is like hard hyper zoom edits, speed motion on things, and like flashes and sounds and industrial in the background and shit. It was just like
it's funny.
It's so caustic and yet so 2000s.
There is like clear like early film student choices, like how all the shots on Adam or Lee Winnell are supposed to be like really shaky and chaotic when they're on him, but like the frame is really still every time they're on Carrie Elways because he's like calm and collected. Like that's a very like young, naive kind of like choice. Like a little on the nose.
I don't know. Actually, it's funny. They made a very similar choice in a show that we're watching called The Penguin. We're watching the behind the scenes of the latest episode where, what's her name? Kristen Milotti, who's playing the Hangman, or Sophia Falcone, as she descends more into Arkham Asylum. They like go from stable camera shots to shaky cam and like handy cam.
That is true, yeah.
And I'm just like, oh yeah, no, these guys are like auteurs doing this at this point. No, I think it's just like everything in filmmaking is just like a tool. Right. Yeah. And it's about how you want to sculpt with those tools. And I think that's like, it's a smart choice, but you're right. It's like they wanted a juxtaposition, and that's like probably the most basic way that you can get a juxtaposition out to. But I do like, the fact that he is calmer, because like, you know, Adam's freaking out and he's just like, aren't you thinking about your daughter? And like him just very sternly like, all I'm thinking about is my daughter. You know? And like but it doesn't help the panic, because it's like, I'm chained up right now and I need to think.
It makes sense that he's calm, cool, and collected. I mean, he's a doctor. He's in these like horrific, chaotic situations all day, every day. I think he's like a surgeon. I don't know. I can't remember what they say, but
he's just generally a doctor. Is the funniest thing. Like, I don't think he has a discipline of any sort. They don't mention anyway.
I think they do mention that he's like a surgeon.
Is he? Because it makes sense because of the tumor patient, John Kramer himself.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that would make sense why he's calm. Like he's molded by like chaotic situations all day, every day. He's dealing with death every day. I mean, even at the end, another spoiler, he like shoots Lee Winnell to make it look like he killed him, but he like shoots him in the shoulder, and like a not murderous spot.
What a surgical choice. Oh my God. You might be right that he was a surgeon.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the whole, so they do flashbacks obviously with his daughter and his wife. How do you feel about how they portrayed this discord in their family, you know, because he has this whole cute scene with his daughter, but like he's just so invested in his work that when she's complaining about there being a ghoulie in her room, he's like, let me finish this paragraph. And I love that he's typing with his fucking index fingers like a child.
I do that.
I mean, like anyone would. Daniel does too, by the way. He with index fingers, yeah.
It's easier. My fingers are stiff. So
I type wrong too. Don't get me wrong. I type totally wrong. The way that they taught me in school did not stick.
Yeah. It's so funny. They make it like throughout school, you do it your entire school career, but I still just like could not lock it down. My fingers are too stiff, so I just want to do this.
Oh, there's a lot of like favoring on the middle fingers for stuff. Like if my middle finger can't reach it, then the other fingers are not going to do anything about it. Like pinky and ring fingers are like not there to help me.
I'm just all thumbs.
They're there for emotional support.
I'm just stamping down with my thumbs, beating it with my fist.
But he's hunched over and he's typing and he you know him and his wife have a marital spat. We have no knowledge of what that is other than like her going, "Can you stop pretending and just say that you hate me?"
Yeah, they don't lay any groundwork for that other than like the daughter asking him if he's going to leave.
He's going to leave. And he's like, "No, never. I'll never leave. Men don't leave."
And then it leads to them fighting. But yeah, it's just her like I don't want to use the word nagging because like that's just how they portray women in film. Just nagging wife.
Well, they don't show any negative quality about him is the problem other than like he's kind of focused on his work.
Yeah, because he's a doctor, but then he turns around immediately within that second and is present and is there and comes to talk to her. So he
very weird.
Does go meet the orderly in a skatey hotel right after that scene.
He does.
I'm not clear on that because it's like, has he already cheated or did they like? I think this was the first setup.
No, I think they're implying that he has cheated because she was just like, well, I don't know how they. Actually, no, it's weird because she does say a line of like, well, I don't know how these things are supposed to go while unbuttoning her blouse.
Yeah.
And he was there to tell her like this has to end. So I think it's implying that they've definitely shacked up before.
Okay.
And then but now he's being honorable.
Yeah. He said like we can't do this, but he said it in a way of like this can never happen kind of thing. So it's very confusing.
Very, very strange.
Doesn't really matter, but
and I'm just kind of like, it's okay. You can admit that he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
That he's or that people are complicated and have flaws, right? That he's a good doctor and he may even be a good dad. But, like, you could at least, like, be like, no, he fucking cheated on that woman.
Again, we've all done something to be worthy to be in John Kramer's trap.
Not me.
Not you. Yeah, you're...
No, I'd be one of his apprentices.
I think those are usually trap survivors, though.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't want to be in a trap.
Yeah, I don't want to lose a limb.
Yeah, I don't want to lose a limb. That's terrible.
Maybe I just, like, don't have, like, a high reverence for life. Because I'm like, if I have to, like, live without my right arm, whatever. Just...
Really? Like it's right arm gone. It's the throw away the rest of the girl.
Getting out of bed is hard enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
No. Life's good. I got a sweet boyfriend.
That's right.
That's all that matters.
Well, my thing is, if you take any single thing away from me, I'm going to take 1,000 things away from you. So I'd be more Hoffman.
Yeah, you would.
I would make the traps that are like, well, wait, I don't think there was a way to get out of it. I'm like, yep. You might notice that you're in a shark tank with a shark. That's it.
I always thought this was like a later thing. Like they even imply it in number 3 where like Amanda's traps become like you can't survive them at all.
Yes.
But like these ones weren't particularly easy either. Like there's the one where like a guy is trying to open a safe because there's a key to his lock on it no, he's poisoned.
It was
and the
Silent
antidote is
Hill
in the
2
safe
puzzle. Remember, because the answer's on the wall.
Yeah, and the only way he can see the answer on the wall is using a candle. Oh, by the way, he's completely covered in kerosene.
Yes.
It's like, this is...
He's greased up with kerosene.
Which gets into the whole dumb argument about, like, technically he's not a killer. He's giving them a choice to live.
But who covered him in kerosene?
Right.
Nature?
Gave him, like, impossible circumstances.
Is he normally oily with kerosene?
I don't think these things would hold up in court as, like, not being a murder. You could, like, send a text message that you're going to murder someone.
No, and that's the whole thing. We're not saying that he's not a murder. Like, he would be charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah.
Like, in almost every charge. Like, or how about the cop when Danny Glover and his partner are chasing him through his warehouse, and the cop, like, steps over a tripwire where a shotgun takes his head off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that... You would get tried for that, buddy. They wouldn't be like, all right, we got to lock up that shotgun and ask it some questions.
Right.
Like, no, it's him.
I cut the brakes to his car, but as he started driving, I texted him that I cut the brakes to his car. So I gave him a choice, and I'm not a murderer.
Right.
He could have rolled out of the car.
Like, I don't even think that's
ongoing traffic.
The argument, right? Like, he knows what he's doing at the end of the day. But yeah, like the fairness of the traps oscillates. I do like that they eventually like admit in some of the sequels that, well, yeah, Amanda was very like caustic, but you find out in like 4 and 5, it was actually Hoffman making her do that shit and sabotaging her traps.
These movies are convoluted bullshit.
They are. They are, because they constantly retcon themselves, you know, but it is funny that they try to have like continuity instead of just turning it into like, well, there's a new Jigsaw. One of them did try that and people hated it.
Aren't they all like that? It's a new Jigsaw though.
No, well, here's the thing. Somehow our boy John Kramer recorded hours worth of like evil tapes because they didn't have AI back in the day. Okay.
How did he have time to like carve puzzle like that? Looks like it takes time when you're doing something like
how did he have time to go to Mexico between films and then hunt down like 8 people that scammed him out of his money? He just, you know, when you have cancer, all the time in the world drops down on you.
The real scenario is like he'd have cancer and he's dying, but he'd still have to like go to work.
Yes, that's exactly
like, how is he affording to do these things first off?
Like he'd be fighting for the PTO. He'd be like, "Can I take a long weekend?" And I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing on the long week? Do you have a doctor's note?" My doctor says I'm dying. Yeah, but that's like one note. In our systems, we need like multiple notes per day. So sorry about that, Mr. Kramer. But no, he's an architect. He's rich. He works by his own standards. I think that's how architects work, right? They do whatever they want. As long as they can design a house, you can live freely.
There you go. Freelance architect.
So yeah, no, again, like all the things are, he is hand drawn all these crazy traps. Sometimes he looks at like a burning wick and figures out that he can flood an entire department store with candle wax.
I'm so sorry to bring up Saw 10 again, but there's just like the funniest scene where he's just sitting on a park bench, like post, like he thinks he has this surgery that's cured him, and he's drawing his like. This is post like the first couple Saw movies in the continuity. 1 and 2.
Oh, it is?
Okay. So he's killed plenty, but he's just sitting on a park bench, like drawing his little ideas for saw traps, and then he just like looks around, and there's like birds tweeting, and he's seeing like children playing. He's like, "Huh, maybe I won't do this today. Now that I have a chance to live." It's the craziest little scene. And
it's really good.
You could skip Saw 1. Just watch Saw 10.
Just go to Saw 10 and you'll be good.
Very stupid again, but
you'll be fine.
Treating him like a folk hero, but
oh, I love it though. It's so funny. And I wish that we could get like movies that are more framed around like not him being a serial killer and more of him just being like crazy about his mission, and then having examples of it actually working that didn't make psychopaths. Because like I gotta tell you, if Amanda and Hoffman are like your output, not great. Not great. Actually, Hoffman's thing that he was never actually in a trap.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he's a bitch.
They just had a detective on his side. ACAB.
So Danny Glover gets shot and dies in this movie. That was kind of
yeah.
I was like, what happens to that character? Oh, he's dead.
There was so much I didn't remember about this movie. I didn't even remember that like Carrie Elwes' like daughter and wife were in the movie at all. I didn't remember Zepp at all.
And the whole thing was, and okay, so that's a weird thing about Zepp. His puzzle was, can you orchestrate Gordon getting captured, and then if he fails, murder his wife and child.
Yeah.
And then you'll appreciate life. So like they act like John knows that things are going to work out a certain way.
Yeah.
It is the biggest thing. And then like, Gordon makes a comment about like, you have to understand how perfect an engine is to be able to like manipulate it. And he was like pointing out in the room, it's like everything is thought through.
Yeah.
And like
He's
the movie kind of
20,000
implies
steps ahead.
yeah, like the movie kind of implies that he knew that Zepp would like not kill the family, or maybe he didn't care. I don't
think he cared.
Maybe he didn't care, yeah. First of all, I don't think he respected Zepp very much.
It's weird that like Zepp seemed to kind of have an interesting history with him though, because he does make a comment on him in the hospital about
he said he's actually a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
Right? And like Gordon's like,
weird.
I'm sleeping with this girl. I don't have time for your intriguing patience talk.
Typical asshole doctor.
Get the fuck out of here. I have no time. I need to look at watches.
You know what kind of confuses me? So, the big surprise after Kramer gets off the floor and tells Adam where his key is to his lock, falls down the drain, so he can't get unlocked. So they just decide to kill him in a sequel? Like, because doesn't Amanda cut his throat in a sequel?
Oh, I don't remember if she does or not.
I think that's revealed in number 3.
There's something about where she was in charge with like hooking up Adam, and she decided to put his key on his chest, knowing that he could easily lose it, instead of putting it into a pocket. Yeah, that's like the only thing that occurred. That's what I read, and I was like, I forget how does he lose the key again?
I'm pretty sure it's
because he
just
drains the bathtub and he loses the key.
I think the key falls down the drain.
Okay.
It's that thing with the little light on it in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. And it falls immediately down. Because they show a flashback of that at the end. Because this movie is all flashbacks.
And then like Kramer's like, the key is in the bathtub. And it's like,
well, it's gone.
The drain.
And then there's the iconic game over. I love that.
Yeah, he does. Game over. You're like, oh, shit, dude.
Sound like Batman to you?
Yeah. Does he do game over?
Game over.
No, I thought he was like, game over. And then he does it.
Game over.
He slams it shut. Yeah, it's amazing how many of the movies just end in that bathroom again. Part 2 does.
Yeah.
Where like Donnie Wahlberg gets like fucking trapped or whatever. And he's just screaming in the bathroom for a while. I think part 3 is the same way. I forget. Just can't get away from that bathroom. And then we're supposed to like, so that bathroom is supposed to be that really intricate warehouse from either part 2 or 3.
It's funny that Kramer's in a warehouse because, I mean, they could only shoot the whole movie in a warehouse. Like, even like when they're showing scaly apartments, it's still that warehouse. Like every wall is that same like stony texture with the high ceilings.
Listen, he just really has a motif that he's going for, an aesthetic that he's fighting for in all of his traps. And maybe it's easier to build 1 million traps in a random warehouse than not.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, it was funny that they found that one warehouse he was in one of his videos when they're like, isn't that a gang symbol in the back there? Right. They're like the Crazy K's or whatever are there.
The Crazy K's.
Yeah. And they're like, God damn, well, we got him. We're going to peg him.
Rival of the Bloods. Crazy K's.
Yeah, okay. Do you remember? So there was the one guy when they go to this warehouse because they think they got him. There's a guy with like 2 like needle drills that are coming into his like to his neck.
Right.
And they're like, how do we get him out of it? And he's like, are you going to capture me or does a life matter more, officer? And
it's like, there's 2 of them. They could go for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, huh?
Also, just shoot him.
Yeah.
You guys are cops. Just shoot. Do your fucking job.
Yeah, what do you do? Do your job and kill him.
That's what you do.
Turn off your body cam and fire at that man.
What else are they good for?
That's the funniest thing. Like in any movie where cops have like a very simple job, they botch it so spectacularly. It's just like,
Like,
it's the
this is
worst thing you've seen.
A decrepit, old, dying, like filled with fucking brain tumors, man. Can you
Right.
just take him down?
Like he could barely jog away. But no, the other cop ends up shooting the drills out, and we never get a follow-up on the guy. There's
don't?
never a shot of the guy going like, oh, thank God. Because it just goes immediately to the other cop running and getting shotgunned. And then Danny Glover is going like, no!
Yeah, and he goes crazy over his partner.
Crazy. Oh, yeah, because he got his neck slit.
Which is weird. And the rest
That's
of
not
the
a good time.
movie, he thinks Carrie Elways is the Jigsaw killer.
Yeah, he still thinks, he's like, we never should have let you go, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Like the whole,
which he's clearly not a very good detective.
I mean, there's so much doubt in the pre Saw franchise days, right? You know, I don't blame him. I think he's the star of the video game, or his brother is.
Danny Glover?
Yeah, Danny Glover's character.
That's right. There is a Saw video
There's
game.
2 Saw video games.
Oh, you need to stream that for.
Oh,
spooky
I hear
season.
they're fucking awful.
Yeah,
I got so many games to stream for the
season.
spooky season. It's already 10/21. We're out of
Are
spooky
you
season.
doubting
baby.
yourself? The red herb?
Yeah. Yeah, because I got too many games to play. I got Silent Hill 3 I want to do.
Well, maybe a Christmas stream.
It's a Christmas stream for Saw.
Yeah. A better way to celebrate.
Saw seasons. So, this was certainly a movie.
Yeah.
It had the ingredients of what we know what Saw becomes.
Right.
You know, but not quite like there. And I'm saying in a bad way. Like, I think it was just like, well, yeah, this is the domain of the movie Saw that they set out to make.
Yeah.
They didn't think it was going to turn into him doing Rube Goldberg traps on multiple people. Yeah. And that's just a sequel thing, right? They up the ante as soon as you get the part 2. It is this large house where every room is a trap, and there's like 8 to 9 people that are stuck in it.
It goes down the typical sequel line where you always have to like make it more intense or make it more gross or
go bigger.
Go bigger, yeah.
And I think by part 2 they start dialing into like, well, let's just like focus on people call us torture porn. Let's be torture porn.
Exactly.
You know, whereas I really don't think Saw 1 is torture porn.
No.
That is not it is.
They wanted like a melodramatic crime drama with some mystery to it.
It's a very character.
Not successful, but that's clearly what they wanted.
Character driven murder mystery.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. Where unfortunately that everyone knows what the mystery is. And I don't think anybody, unless you were just completely offline, you will not be surprised by this film. In the year 2024, there's no way, right? But I think there's a bit of fun to it, you know, and I think again we both appreciate the filmmaking behind it. But is this a movie that I like? I don't know.
Did I enjoy the experience of watching it? No.
Yeah, I don't think it's that good. I'm sorry. Like, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
I think there's some sequels that I prefer much more.
Yeah.
But
at least that's leaning into just the nonsense and there's fun kills. This is just like, it wants to be more serious than that, but it just can't be. It's not very, when you break it down, it's just not good on any facets.
Like, it just can't be, right? Yeah. But I still think it's an artifact that like people should check out and be like, well, what is Saw?
Yeah.
And then you know, if somebody asked me like, should I get into the Saw movies? No.
No. I think it's like a very like hyper specific thing. Like you have to be a millennial. It was like a time and place. Like you had to grow up with this to kind of have like this weird nostalgia appreciation for it, and also a horror fan.
I think the movies would be stupid and abrasive if you're coming into it without like any of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like
especially
a
if you
lack
had
of
like the
nostalgia
word
for
of
this
mouth
era.
your entire life, and then you watch it and you go, what the fuck?
Yeah, you watch it and you go like, why can't that one guy act?
Yeah.
Why is there like no blood? Like,
this is what it's known for. Why is there no fucking blood?
What's really funny is that like the MPAA kind of pushed against them, and they're like, yo, you need to take some stuff out to make this rated R. And so they re-edited it, and I'm just like, we watched the unrated cut, and I'm like, there wasn't anything that made me like there's only one scene where I was like, yeah, that's kind of nasty, and it was when she's digging in Amanda through the entrails of the dude.
Yeah.
And they were like pig intestines.
I think that's the scene that everyone always that's always what I remembered of the gore. I couldn't remember any other, like, I didn't remember the barbed wire scene or any of the kills, because again, you don't really see them. And you don't even see the foot being sawn off.
No, and that would have been awesome if he was like having to like saw through bone and shit, and you just watch that.
You
like,
can tell they wanted to do that, but again, budget issues.
Yeah, there's no budget to do that. they had to get Lee Winnell to pretend to be 5 different people. Like, there's no way they're going to show us like a complete like de-footification. Like, they just had no money, and you kind of want it. I certainly wanted it.
I think, I've grown more of an appreciation towards it, because it's just like, in my mind, it's like a fun capsule of the era. It's very, so much we go back to movies that like you enjoyed very much as a teen, and this was one of the few that we go back to that like I loved as a teen.
Oh, that you loved as a teen?
Yeah,
okay,
I
wasn't
very
aware of
much.
that.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware that you were saw-pilled.
I fell off by 2, so like
okay, well,
I watched 2 a few times. I thought it was okay, but like no, I thought Saw was like a smart movie when I was 16.
People love Saw 2, and I'm just like, it's all right.
Yeah. Everyone just thinks that needle pit scene.
Really though, that's the only fucking thing they bring up in that movie.
It's pretty horrific though.
Still though, the whole movie cannot.
Speaking of
hinge on a needle
useless,
scene.
Amanda is the one that gets thrown into the needle pit scene because she becomes a protege. But
the whole subversion with that,
another useless surprise. They follow the same theme where it's a useless surprise. She didn't need to be with that group the entire time. Like, it was just another twist that didn't make sense.
No, although I think it's better than some of the other things that they've ever tried to pull off, right? Because like most of the movies just try to go out of their way to trick the audience, and be like, "Ooh, you're not seeing what's actually going on." And it's like, yes, because you didn't tell it to me. I think the best mysteries are the ones that, well, kind of like this. It's in your face the whole time. And if you're smart enough, you can figure out like, oh, it's this. This makes sense.
Right.
The Saw sequels are all the same, which is like we were withholding information, and that's the twist.
Yeah.
Right.
We're just revealing the ending to you.
Like, it's like if the end of The Sixth Sense was just like, actually, it was aliens. Right. And you're like, what?
Hint towards aliens at all.
Yeah, you didn't hint it. What? No, it was dead people the whole time. Yes, but the dead were aliens.
Yeah, no, The Sixth Sense is like a masterclass of being in your face the whole time. Like, nobody is registering Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is wearing the same outfit the entire movie, but like different variations.
And all the
like,
clues are there.
Sweater's on.
But you just don't know to synthesize the clues into this is the result, right? And I think it's almost the same in this movie where you're like, there's a dead body in the ground. And you stop thinking about it. Right? Like, because it's not important. It is just like a prop in this situation between these two guys.
And you're seeing another person who's the killer the entire time.
Right. So I get it. That's actually a better twist than the sequels are just like, actually, it was this. Yeah. Isn't that rad? And you're like, no. No, it's not.
What's the Rotten Tomatoes on this?
Oh, shit. We didn't check.
We didn't.
Did you know this came out October 29th, 2004?
Sounds right.
And has a 50% Rotten Tomato score.
All right. What about fans?
Let me click on it.
Let's not forget the fans.
I forget the fans every day. An 84%. 84. Wow.
Rotten Tomatoes has been around for a while.
Yeah. The fans really liked it. General critics were half and half.
That's fair.
On this. That's completely fair. Again, I think it's a very unique horror movie. Mm-hmm. I feel like all of its influences and its ingredients combined into a movie that I think is seminal unto itself, where it's like, yeah, there isn't really a lot of other movies, well, back then that were like Saw.
I think it was another generational, like, necessary thing. The way that Scream came around in the early 90s and was kind of poking fun at the original, or the Halloween or Friday the 13th, like, tropes. I think this was kind of, I mean, not the greatest step, but a necessary step to get out of that, because there were only so many carbon copies, like the I Know What You Did last summer and the urban legend. Like, everyone was like this model, like 90210 actor, and it was dumb kills. So it ushered in a new era of horror. I'm trying to give this movie credit.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I mean, it did. It absolutely did, right? Like,
Yeah.
there were other films, and I think it honestly encouraged other horror filmmakers to say, I can take a leap.
Yeah.
That I can show you a little bit more.
We can take horror seriously again. Without the major, like, having the cast members eye roll into the camera.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be ironic horror any longer. And I think there's a Scream was a great shot in the arm against, like, kind of the tropes and pratfalls that 80s horror slashers got into, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Although it was also a detrimental shot in the arm. It eventually, like, inoculated people from being scared at all.
And not saying there
From
isn't
horror movies for
there
a
isn't
while.
great horror in the 90s that kind of, like, like we just mentioned Sixth Sense counterbalance that, or like Silence of the Lambs. I mean, there were great movies to counteract, but, like, again, popcorn horror had to, the mainstream horror.
Yeah, had to die for a while.
Yeah.
And before it came back a little bit.
Yeah.
So Saw was there and proved to people that, like, you know what? If we give some random kids $1 million, they're going to come back with 100.
Granted, it's kind of what put us in this hellscape of a podcast.
Yes.
We have an entire decade of
Certainly
bad
did.
horror movies to talk about.
It certainly fucking did.
We still got things like the great movies in that decade. Like, I can't wait to talk about The Descent or Trick or Treat, one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Never made it to theaters, though, that Trick or Treat.
Yeah. What a shame.
Yeah, that's still a cult hit to this day. Like, it is not
You can't
one of
walk
the big
into
players.
like a Spirit Halloween without like 20 Sam dolls just at the
No.
front row.
I hope somebody's making some good money off of that, and I wish it was the director, but I know it's not.
Probably not.
I
Yeah.
know it's not. Even though that was his pet project for years and years and years, and
Yeah.
he still wants to make a sequel. But yeah, that's true. Listen, I got 10 movies out of Saw. Have I enjoyed all of them? No. Are all
Yeah,
of them
you
good?
have.
No. But if you're okay with watching trash, dive into the sequels a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because there's something else. But this first one, I admire it for what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think I like love it as a film. Like, I don't think I could turn this on again and like
It doesn't hold up.
enjoy it. No, it doesn't hold up. I'm sorry, it's old. It's old, and they shot it for like $2, and
Yeah.
it took them 18 days.
I just don't want people to think like, oh, they're being a little too harsh on something that was really scrapped together, like a little cheap 99-cent store jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, but it's like
it still made a lot of money.
I think the idea behind it is something that I love, which is like, you know, some really passionate filmmakers can get together, put their heart and soul into something small and have it explode outward into something big for folks.
Yeah.
And then launch their careers. And now we have two of the most coveted horror filmmakers of all time.
Really though, yeah.
Like one of them's making fucking Conjuring films. We're about to wrap up on a fourth Conjuring film. The other is reinventing Universal monsters.
Like in an actual good way.
Yeah, like I'm like, hell yeah, dude.
Universal's been trying to do this for years, and Lee Wanell comes in and it's like, bet.
Yeah, but that's not important to me. What's important to me is that we got one byproduct out of the Saw experiment. One of my favorite pieces of filmmaking ever, and it's called Dead Silence.
Was that episode 2 for us?
That was episode 2, yeah. Yeah. Because we did Curse and we did that one, right?
That's another funny one where it's like clearly stylistically more like up their alley, especially James Wan, but
Yeah.
like
But
another
out of reach
fu-
of their talent at the time.
another film that both of them like do not like.
I know, it's so funny. But like, dudes, you made every wrong choice. The only right choice was Donnie Wahlberg.
They were young. They've molded themselves to be
Yeah.
like horror superstars. So
I know. Good for them. Good.
very different paths, but admirable nonetheless.
Indeed. Well, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
We saw.
We saw the saws.
It's done.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We did that thing. We didn't introduce ourselves again, didn't we?
That's fine.
Well, I'm Jacqueline.
I'm Kevin.
Thank you so much for listening.